the World Bank is working to be the best organization in development for persons with disabilities. And we want you to know that you are welcome to work with us. And to do that, we want you to get all the information you need, get you the opportunity to ask all your questions, and have all your questions answered. And that is why you are here. And so because of that, this session has about 20 to 30 minutes slot for just questions. So please, pay attention to the conversation, to the panel, jot down your questions, and when it's time for questions, we are more than happy to respond to all your questions. And one good thing is that we have a recruiter here, and we are already collecting details of people into our pipeline. So we are really interested in ensuring that you can see yourself and actually join us at the World Bank Group. So to start us off, we are very glad to have one of our managers from the Nairobi office, and who is going to give us an opening remark, welcome you, and let you know how important this session is for the World Bank Group. And please help me, let's welcome Mukami Kariuki. Thank you so much. Please help me, let's welcome Mukami, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a real pleasure to welcome you today to this World Bank Group session on empowering careers and creating inclusive opportunities. On behalf of the World Bank Group Regional Hub in Nairobi, and I'll explain what that is in a few moments, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you here today. So the regional hub is actually our second largest office in the world in terms of bringing together technical staff who work across the entire Africa region. So it's an important collection of people from all over the world working across the continent and beyond in many cases on the IFC, International Finance Corporation, the World Bank Group, and MIGA, the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Authority activities across the continent. Across Africa, I think the World Bank Group is known to work alongside governments, partners, the private sector, and communities to address the region's most pressing challenges, from expanding access to energy, water supply, to digital connectivity, strengthening education systems, driving inclusive economic growth, and building climate-resilient infrastructure. Our work is at its core about improving lives and creating opportunities at scale. And we've come to understand with clarity that how we deliver this work matters as much as what we deliver. Inclusion and belonging are central to achieving better development outcomes. By bringing together diverse perspectives, skills, and lived experiences, we're better equipped to design solutions that are more relevant, more sustainable, and more impactful for the communities we serve. So that is the lens we use as we carry out our work across the globe. So that conviction is also why our engagement at this conference matters. Our presence here reflects a deliberate institutional commitment to strengthen talent pipelines in the region and to position the World Bank Group as an employer of choice, one that genuinely values and invests in talents with disabilities. Today's session will bring to life what a career at the World Bank Group and in development more broadly looks like in practice, but also while reinforcing the importance of creating an environment where everyone, regardless of background or ability, can contribute, grow, and thrive. We practice this on a regular basis within the institution, and as I said, it's a lens that we use not just for our own work, but for work with our clients and our partners. So I encourage you, as you listen to the panel today, to engage actively rather, to ask questions and to take full advantage of this opportunity to understand the institution better, to understand the opportunities that we have to offer. And with that, let me say good afternoon, and I wish you a very engaging and insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mukami. Thank you so much for making time to be here. So before we delve into the panel, which is the main thing for today, I want to just set a brief context of what the World Bank Group is. Many of you think like that. Some people think that the World Bank is like we are a bank with an ATM. Unfortunately, we don't have ATMs. So I would like to give you just a brief overview of what the World Bank is so that we can have some good context. And then when the panel conversations are ongoing, you can understand some of the terminologies, why we do what we do, and how it's been done. And so if the AV team, the audiovisual team, could support me with the presentation. So before I start, I'll tell you a bit about my work. I'm very privileged to be working in the organization within HR, working on ensuring that the World Bank becomes the best place to work for persons with disabilities. What that looks like is I focus on our HR processes from recruitment to talent attraction. That's why we are here. Recruitment, onboarding, career development, career progression, and through the employee life cycle. So how you attend events, the events, accessibility of our events, the accessibility of our buildings. I work with so many different colleagues to ensure that the World Bank is a place that is accessible and supports every single individual, including staff who have caregiving responsibilities. And so that is the exciting thing about my work. So I want to mention one important thing you need to know about the World Bank Group is the World Bank Group is made up of 5 institutions. So one group, 5 institutions. We have IBRD, which is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. International Bank for Reconstruction and Development is the institution that provides loans to middle-income and credit-worthy low-income governments. So a lot of you are very used to hearing about the World Bank loan and all of that, and World Bank is financing a project. A lot of times, our engagement with governments, it's either IBRD, and we have another organization called IDA, which is IDA. IDA is the International Development Association, and IDA provides interest-free loans and grants to the poorest countries. And then we have IFC. IFC is the International Finance Corporation. When I joined the World Bank a few years ago, I joined through IFC, but I now work across the group. Now it's one institution, one group. IFC is a private sector development organization, the largest private sector development finance institution in the world, and it provides private sector financing in emerging markets. And then we have MIGA. MIGA is the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So what that means is they provide guarantees against non-commercial risk for foreign investment. And then we have ICSID. ICSID is basically the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. I really would like to show this so that it's more accessible. Okay. Okay. Good. So this is what I'm talking about. So we have 5 institutions under the World Bank Group, and all these 5 institutions work very closely together towards our mission. Okay. Thank you. We can stay here on the slide. No, the next slide, please. Thank you. So you may be wondering, I've mentioned all these institutions. What do we really do? So World Bank's mission is a world free of poverty on a livable planet. And we do this through different sectors. We understand that global challenges are interconnected, and so our work is organized in 5 strategic pillars. 1 is people, and 2 is prosperity, planet, infrastructure, digital. And under these areas, they are all interlinked. So if you take a look at people, or if you consider people, under people, we focus on education, focus on social protection, we focus on health, we focus on jobs. You know, you consider infrastructure, we have energy extractives, we have transport, we have sustainable infrastructure, finance, urban development. So our work, usually I would say, World Bank touches on everything. At the World Bank Group, you meet people who work on things you would never thought they would be working on. Basically, we do everything that ensures that the world is free of poverty, and we are creating a world where everybody can thrive. So just coming to a conclusion on this short context, I just want to talk about where we work, right? Most of you, I've already told you, we are a global institution. We work in over 150 countries across the world. In fact, we have 159 offices across the world. The previous slide. Okay, yes, thank you so much. So we have 150 countries across the world. Currently, 59% of our workforce is located outside Washington, D.C. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C. We have about close to 60% of our workforce located outside Washington, D.C. So you can see yourself working possibly in Bogota, you can see yourself working in Accra, you can see yourself working in Nairobi, you can see yourself working in any country that you can think about. Our goal is that by 2030, 65% of our staff will be located outside the headquarters. Now, let me tell you about how you can join so that you can start thinking, how do you find yourself to the World Bank Group? And so the next slide. We have 4 main pathways to joining the World Bank Group. The first is through internships. The second is through different programs. I'll touch on them. The third is through consultancies. And the fourth is through regular staff positions. And so under the internships, we have a new internship program called the World Bank Group Pioneers Program that provides hands-on experience through internship programs for many students, that's undergrad or postgraduate students. And under the World Bank Group Pioneers Program, we have what we call the Inclusive Internship Program. And this is a dedicated track that we run for individuals working with disabilities or neurodiversities. So under the World Bank Group Pioneers Program, we intentionally want to ensure that we are attracting and giving opportunity to many persons with disabilities like yourself to join us and work with us. Then we have also youth recruitment programs. So under programs, we have the YPP, the Young Professionals Program. It's an important flagship initiative for the World Bank where we recruit emerging leaders in development, finance, and policy to work with us. And then we have consultancies. I joined the World Bank Group as a consultant, and you can contribute to expertise on short or long-term projects across different sectors and different regions. And then we also have full-time staff opportunities that you can apply for. We'll show you where you can apply for these opportunities. You can apply, we have it in economics, infrastructure, climate, education, digital transformation. I won't talk too much. We have the people who actually do the work here. And we have people from education, social development, treasury, finance, and they are going to walk us through their experience. We get to understand how they got in and what the experience has been like. So to wrap up, just making sure that I've given you the information you need as much as possible and also not also take too much of your time. To wrap up, I just want to touch a bit on how you get in, and when you get in as a person with disability, how do we support you? So at the World Bank Group, we have what we call the Accommodation Center of Excellence. And the Accommodation Center of Excellence is a dedicated team of professionals who provide accommodation to individuals or staff working with disabilities. They provide confidential advice. So at the World Bank, when you apply to join the World Bank Group, before you apply, in fact, when you are applying, you get the opportunity to indicate if you need accommodation. Once you indicate if you need accommodation and your application goes through, once you are long-listed, you'll be invited, or shortlisted, you'll be invited for an interview. You have another opportunity again to indicate if you need accommodation. The Accommodation Center of Excellence will meet with you privately. It's confidential. They don't disclose it to the managers. They don't disclose it to the hiring team. And then they make sure that they provide you with the accommodation you need. So whether you need a sign language interpreter, whether you need closed captioning, whether you need time breaks when you are having the interview, or whether you need more time during the interview. There are a wide range of accommodation that we provide when you are about to join the World Bank Group. We do not only provide accommodation at recruitment, we also provide accommodation in the workplace. So after you have been recruited, when you get into a workplace, you are wondering, I need accommodation, my office needs to be remodeled, or I need an accommodation, maybe I need an assistive technology, right? All these accommodations are provided, and we have our Global Disability Inclusion Advisor who will throw more light on the kind of accommodations that we provide for our staff. Another thing I want to talk about before I invite our panel is that, to conclude, you are so important to the World Bank Group. The work that we do, as Mukami mentioned, we need to ensure that we think about how we deliver it. And if we are delivering, we are solving problems which affect you, we need to ensure that we have people like you who can support us, who can bring new perspectives, who can join us to create a world free of poverty on a livable planet. So thank you very much for this short presentation. I hope that it created some background and context for you. And please, I know most of you have questions. All your questions will be addressed by our panelists. So before we move on, I'm very glad to have 3 wonderful, well-experienced World Bank Group staff with us. And I'm going to read their bio so that you just appreciate the work they've done and where they've worked. And then you can also, if it's aligned with you, you can always reach out to them and then connect with them. So first, I'd like to introduce Muna Meki. Muna Meki is a practice manager for Education Global Practice, Eastern and Southern Africa at the World Bank, a seasoned practitioner in education and development. She held significant roles across regions including Kenya, Nigeria, India, and Malawi during her tenure with the World Bank. As a practice manager, Muna spearheaded initiatives to foster regional dialogue for African-driven education solutions. Her contributions in Nigeria as a program leader facilitated innovative approaches to improving human capital outcomes, including aligning with vocational skills with industry needs and coordinating programs for maximum impact. In India, Muna led transformative projects focusing on skill development and second chance education, showcasing a commitment to equity and quality in education. Please help me with a round of applause. Welcome, Muna. Okay, so the next person we have is the manager for Treasury Client Solutions, Martin Hebel. Martin Hebel is the head of IFC's Treasury Client Solutions team covering Africa, Europe, Middle East, and Central Asia. The team is responsible for delivering structured finance, debt capital markets, derivative solutions. These sound technical. Don't worry, we'll break it down for you to understand. For IFC's clients in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. Since joining IFC in 2007, Martin has structured fixed income solutions in Asia, Africa, Europe, across a wide range of asset classes. Prior to joining IFC, Martin worked with the German Development Bank. Martin holds a master's in mathematics from Albert Ludwig University in Freiburg and an MSc in economics from London School of Economics. Please, let's welcome Martin. And then we have our Global Disability Advisor, who has been leading a lot of our work on disability inclusion. So I'll just read her bio shortly. Please, you can, yeah. Yes. So Charlotte McLean in Lapo is the Global Disability Advisor at the World Bank Group, working to advance disability inclusive development aligned with ending poverty and promoting shared prosperity on a livable planet. She guides operational teams to ensure bank policies and projects are disability inclusive, develops analytical products, and interprets bank policy in this field. Previously, she was appointed by President Obama to lead USAID disability inclusive development efforts and served as a senior officer at the World Bank in East Asia, Pacific, and Africa. Earlier, President Nelson Mandela appointed her as the Commissioner for South Africa Human Rights Commission, focusing on social, economic, disability, and child rights. She played a key role in drafting the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and worked for UNICEF as a child protection officer. Charlotte holds a law degree from University of Warsaw and Cornell Law School, has published widely. If you really are into research, you will know that most of the World Bank Group reports, you have a name on it. Published widely on disability and human rights, received an honorary doctorate from Stellenbosch University, and is a Rockefeller Fellow. She's also a TEDx speaker. Please help me welcome Charlotte. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, and also apologies once again for the delay. I'm very sure that you learn a lot from this session. Thank you, everyone. Charlotte, thank you. Martin, thank you so much. Muna. So I've introduced you. They have an idea about you. But I would like you to share one short reflection on your journey at the World Bank Group. Particularly, what brought you to the World Bank? And also, one project that reinforces your sense of impact. What makes you feel like, wow, I'm fulfilled. I'm creating an impact at the World Bank Group. I would like to start with you, Muna. Yes.
Sorry, so the question had two parts, an influential project, and what was the first one?
What brought you to the World Bank Group?
So I studied economics, and I think most people who were studying economics knew about the World Bank, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what it did. But as I was going into graduate school, I was really, you would learn so much about the challenges people have to live the kind of life that they want. It's a health challenge, an education challenge. And how do you support people to get the opportunities that they need to live a productive and happy life? And then I began to look at the kinds of programs the World Bank had, and I really thought the World Bank was nicely positioned. It brought research, because it had a whole research department. It had operations, so people who actually supported government in financing. And then it had a lot of policy dialogue, so engaging with government on policies and reforms. And I'd like that an organization brought those three parts together, which all seemed really critical if you wanted to change and allow people to get access to education, get access to health, and I work much more in education, but be it energy or any other services that people need, because once people have the services, they're usually able to transition into going into the types of careers that they wanted. So that was something that really brought me to the bank, to think about how could I be a part of one of the different arms of the bank to support the World Bank's mandate. I think I've had an opportunity to be a part of a lot of really exciting projects, but maybe one that I think really stood out was I worked on a project in India years ago, and it was called Nai Manzil, and it was a really small project. So most of the projects I've done are big ones. This was small for us. It was kind of a $50 million project, and more of a pilot than anything else. But it was focused on religious minorities. So in India, many religious minorities did not have access to the same education that other people did. And so this was this accelerated program, 8-9 months, to really try to get people from various communities access to certificates, education certificates, so they could access formal government jobs. It was done in a very short period of time. It was somehow quite political, but everyone seemed to come behind it. So Nai Manzil meant New Horizons, and I love the fact that we were able to take a moment away from these big monster projects we did, look at a very specific group of people, think about what their challenges are, and design something to support. And what I really liked is it was the government who wanted it. It was them who spearheaded it and asked if we could support their initiative. So it was something I'm really excited that I got to be a part of some government's agenda and vision for a very specific group of people. And I think I left before the project really got started, but I think it was quite successful, and it's a really proud moment for me.
Wow. Martin?
Thank you, Derek. And, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. So again, my name is Martin Habel, and as Derek mentioned, so I lead a team that's called Client Solutions and Structuring, and that's a team within World Bank Group Treasury, which is actually responsible for providing solutions to clients that involve sort of treasury expertise, so complex fixed income products, sort of financial products that involve a certain technical expertise. And that ranges from providing local currency financing to clients, which is quite important for our clients to borrow money in the currency that they earn, so the currency of their revenue, because otherwise you take currency risk, which actually can be very dangerous, to capital market transactions, and also helping clients hedge or insure themselves against market risks. What brought me here? So I'm a German national. I studied mathematics actually in Germany a long time ago. And I was not necessarily very interested in a corporate career, or I wasn't even very interested in finance. I was very curious to understand how the world works, and I was very curious to maybe understand how one could contribute to making things a bit better. So I was always quite curious to find a way that makes a difference, and that I got interested in economics. I studied economics, like Mona afterwards. But so I ended up in development finance a little bit by accident. First in the German development finance, and then later in IFC, also a bit by accident. But the longer I worked there, the more interested I got in actually what finance can do and development finance can do to basically deploy resources to address some of the global challenges. So that's in a way my challenge, my journey. In terms of, so my team works on many projects, and I've worked on many projects, but one recent project that I'm very proud of that my team worked on is in Côte d'Ivoire, a program that is called the Programme Électricité pour tous, so the program for electricity for all, which is a government program that aims to electrify households, to basically connect households to the electricity grid. And so my team, together with other teams, worked in creating a capital market transaction that allowed low-income households that couldn't afford the connection, the cost of connection in that program, to basically repay that over a flexible period of time as a function of the electricity use. It was a securitization. For those of you who know a bit of finance, it was a securitization. It was a complex capital markets transaction in the West African capital market that ultimately sort of contributed to one of a massive development challenge, which is access to electricity connection, and so that's anyway, it was just one example. Very proud of. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for your work in ensuring that electricity goes everywhere and everybody can have access to electricity. So over to you, Charlotte. Yes.
So good afternoon, everybody, and particularly I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Inclusion and Belonging team for making it possible for me to be here today. It really is quite an honor. So what brought me to the World Bank? As mentioned by Derek in my bio, I'm a human rights lawyer. I trained in human rights. I was a commissioner on the South African Human Rights Commission. And I was very involved in the drafting of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. But I began to realize that there was a gap, and the gap was the financing. You could have an amazing constitution and an amazing convention, but if you don't have the resources to implement it, then it's words on paper. And so I started to think seriously about where I should go to help think about implementation of the CRPD. And while the bank is not a human rights institution, it is a big development institution. And so it made sense for me to think about the World Bank. I joined the World Bank as a consultant 22 years ago when I was 12 years old. I'm joking. So 22 years old as a consultant. And over the years, I've worked, and this is an exciting part of the bank. I've worked in different parts of the world. I initially worked in East Asia and the Pacific. I worked in Africa. I've worked in Latin America. I've basically worked across the globe. In addition to the geography, I've also been able to work in different sectors. So, you know, I'm not an education specialist, but I've been able to work on education, because what do I bring to education? I bring to education the knowledge around disability inclusion. The same for health, the same for digital development, same for infrastructure. So an issue like disability inclusion is transversal, right? It goes across all the sectors that we work. And so I find myself providing a lot of guidance to colleagues around that space. In terms of what are some of the most impactful moments, it's hard to say because I feel like we're making impact all the time. But I would say, if I had to choose one issue, it would be that myself and my team, and I have a very small but mighty team, we've been able to move disability from being an advocacy issue to actually being a development issue within the institution. And that's underpinned by policy and by analytics and by data. And trust me, that has been no easy feat. It's easy to say you have to put disability in. It's a lot more difficult at a technical level to figure out how to do it. And so if that was the one thing that I say I'm most proud of, it would be establishing that team and seeing that the institution now recognizes disability inclusion as part of their overall mandate.
Yes, please, let's give her another round of applause. Let's give her a rounds of applause, please. I really appreciate you highlighting working across the globe. And I want to maybe touch a bit on that by coming to Muna. If you could talk to us about I know you've also worked across different countries, across the globe. How has it shaped your own professional journey? Why is it important to work across the globe? And what advice would you offer to everybody here who is thinking about this? What does this look like? Is it important to even work across the globe?
No, thank you, and I do appreciate the opportunity that I've had to work in many different countries. I think I'll just say a few things that I feel like I learned from the experience when I was doing it for those who are considering the same. I think the first thing I learned when you work in different countries is not to rush. When you land in a country, there's a whole set of things happening that you do not understand. And so I had a Nigerian mentor who told me, Muna, it's an important moment in your life. It is not an important moment in theirs, your 3 years in their country. They are not excited because of your 3 years. So just breathe, take your time, and try to understand why things look the way they look. You might have done it differently, but there's a history and an experience that has happened way before you came, and there's an objective that you were not a part of defining. So really try to understand what that is before you go. And I know you guys don't know me, but I'm very energetic, and I like to talk a lot, and I have lots of ideas. And so I had to learn to just pull all of that back, because until I understood what was the point of all my ideas, if I couldn't speak the language of the people that were around me. I think the second thing that was useful for me was that I learned was that you have to do whatever the team needs. So I really thought I was this very smart economist, and I had all these models, and no one was interested in that. So there are certain countries needed certain things. Maybe they needed somebody to help organize a workshop. Maybe they needed somebody to look at textbook procurement. Whatever it is that they needed, I needed to quickly figure out how to do it and be a part and support the team. There will be time for me to use my expertise, hopefully. But first, I need to show my value added to the team. What did they need? And I was not an expert in what they needed, but I went to school, I understood something, I could learn enough and show people that the teams that I was excited and I was there for their objective, and whatever it was, I was trying to learn it. And so I think with these experiences, I learned a lot from the people I worked with, but doing new things. And the third one, I'm going to say, was somewhat of maybe something I failed at and I'm trying to do now in my different experiences. Although I talk a lot and I'm excited, I'm actually very shy to talk in forums like this. So I love these three ladies because they keep smiling at me and making me feel really good about what I'm saying. Maybe what I'm saying is nonsense, I don't know, but they make me feel happy. And so I was always really shy, sat in the back. I felt like as long as I worked, that was good enough. I didn't need to. But I think that has actually been a problem because I've been in so many places. I've had so many experiences, and I've always been really shy to bring them out. And so that's what I'm trying to do in my Kenya experience, which is actually come out. When someone asked if I would come, I thought, well, this is not an area of my expertise, but I know something, maybe I can come and give something. So that's also this idea of putting yourself in uncomfortable positions where maybe you don't feel is your expertise. But I'm trying, and I think that maybe my next position, I'll be a good public speaker because I gained it from this one. So thank you for letting me be here and be a part.
Thank you so much. I really like what you said about, when you get into a new place, there is a need to understand what works for them and not go and think that you are here to make things better. Thank you for sharing that. Coming to you, Martin, I want to just switch your question up a bit. You've spoken a bit about why your work you do is fulfilling. What would you say about your career experience? Can you tell us a bit about your career experience? Has it been rich?
Thank you. Yes, and I just learned I have something in common with Mona, because I'm actually also a bit shy and quite introvert and don't like public speaking. But I just learned that. Anyway, but no, I think look, when I joined IFC, I never thought I would stay so long. So IFC, part of the World Bank, as you remember.
I want to just mention that IFC is the International Finance Corporation. By the way, World Bank has so many acronyms, so it's very easy for us to use acronyms. But in case you don't get any acronym, please raise your hand or let us know and we'll explain.
No, thank you for reminding. So it's one of the 5 institutions that Derek mentioned earlier. It's the private sector arm, and I spent most of my career in the World Bank Group in IFC. So basically, IFC makes investments to private sector companies and projects. And I never thought I would stay as long, but the years have flown by, and the reasons are really twofold. I mean, so I also worked in many countries. I was based in Hong Kong, Washington, Senegal, South Africa, London, and now Nairobi. Worked on projects globally. And so I naturally gravitated a bit to a more technical area of work. So I liked maybe a bit more complex technical area because I felt there was something I could contribute, but always focused on sort of problem solving. So, and my team that work with also, ultimately we try to solve problems, which can sometimes be a bit of an engineer's role or sometimes a bit of a plumber role. We sometimes are the plumbers in finance. But the plumbing is important. If the plumbing is not good, things don't work. And coming up with solutions and making them work is actually, I found, always quite fulfilling, to be honest. And this involves often technical work, from modeling to just making sure things connect. And just, so the example I gave earlier, other examples, to give you one more example is, for example, we created products that have become mainstream products, like, for example, risk-sharing facilities, which are portfolio guarantees we offer to financial institutions to share some of the risks that they are in their lending, to help them lend more, for example, to agribusinesses or women-owned businesses or SMEs, which are traditionally areas where banks, for example, are often a bit risk-averse. Anyway, so the second, the first point is really the job. I mean, the job content is very diverse. We work on many projects and we contribute to a solution which is very tangible and fulfilling. But the second point, I must say, if I leave the World Bank Group, the thing that really kept me and that also made me stay are the people. So at the World Bank Group, you work with highly talented people from all over the globe and all over different cultures. That are sort of united by a strong commitment to make a difference in their work. And that is really quite a striking experience. And it's not always easy because you have to communicate with the other cultures that communicate very differently and so on, but it's incredibly fulfilling and you learn a lot. And it's actually very humbling. And that diversity really of the workforce, that of the colleagues, the backgrounds, talents, often also the talents people not only have in the workplace, but also outside the workplace that you learn. It's just incredibly talented and incredibly humbling. And the sense that you work with people that are based in those different offices, that come from everywhere, but that all want to work together and collaborate on making a difference. You can call pretty much any colleague any point in time and they will spend time with you and try to find a solution. is really just incredible. And that's something I will never forget when I ever leave the place. So it's really the people who kept me here.
Wow. In fact, I was going to ask you a question on the value of the people you work with and how different we are and why we are interested in diverse talent and people who think differently on the team. And I think you've done very well by answering that. I don't know if you want to touch on it briefly on what is the value of having different people from different backgrounds, persons with disabilities, persons from different countries, different religious background. How important is that at the World Bank Group, and how much of that do you see?
So we see this every day. So I think in my department, I believe we have as many nationalities as we have people. I don't think we have hardly 2 people from the same country. And obviously different religions, different cultures. So it's actually, it's who we are. But I think what it does is that it makes you question a lot of your assumptions, and it makes you realize often that other perspectives which are outside, which are maybe your blind spots, actually you learn a lot from. So I think we all probably in our careers, and I'm sure that's true for not just for the World Bank Group, but in many other careers, we really learn that in the end, it's all about the team, bringing different perspectives, different talents, different skills together, respecting those skills. So if you have a team where everybody is sort of the same, that team will not be highly performing. So that I'm completely convinced. And it's not about, and it's never about individual stardom or individual performance. It's always about a team working well together and sort of seeking basically perspectives from others. And that's really something I've seen, and I would always try to build teams that bring those different backgrounds. And you know, some of the diversity is very visible, some of the diversity is not very visible, but it really comes in how we think or how we approach problems, or where our natural strengths are. If we are introverted, if we are extrovert, and it's really the combination in the end that makes the good result. And so that's certainly something I've learned very clearly.
Thank you so much, Martin. I'm just curious, for those of you who have joined us, how many of you speak 2 languages, at least 2 languages? If you can raise up your hands, at least 2 languages. Wow, so this is such a diverse group of people. One quick fun fact, at the World Bank, there are over 140 nationalities. Over 140 nationalities. It's very, very unlikely to meet 3 people from one country in a team. Sometimes you may, but very unlikely. And so that tells you how diverse, how open we are to people from different nationalities, different background, different, educational backgrounds, among others. And that is why we are here at this conference. And so in bringing it home, Charlotte, can you tell us a bit about what should candidates, everybody in this room, thinking, can I work at the World Bank Group? What should they think about? Maybe they're asking questions about what does the World Bank do to accommodate me coming into the World Bank Group? How does the World Bank ensure that my skills can be used effectively? How does the World Bank help me to thrive if I join? Maybe from your own experience. Can you share a bit about that?
Sure. So that's a big question. I think the one thing is to be the best person in your job, right? So to have the expertise. Because what the bank is looking for is really smart people that bring value to the institution. And so, honing your field and being the best at whatever you're doing is going to be really important. And I think when speaking to an audience of many persons with disabilities, it's also to say you don't have to work on disability. You can work in finance, you can work in education with Muna, you can work across the board. And so don't pigeonhole yourselves into a particular type of work. Go with what you believe in, what your passion is, but bring your best self to work. So I think that's important. So having the qualifications is the one thing that will get you in the door, right? So that's important. I think the other thing is to really just think about whether you want to be working at the World Bank office as a locally recruited staff, so attached to the Kenya office, or if you're looking at an international career. And those are 2 different trajectories to take. The other thing that I think is also helpful is, as mentioned by Derek earlier on, is that there are different entry points to join the bank. You can come in as a consultant, and that's actually quite an interesting way to come in because it gives you a sense of how the institution works. You're not 100% committed to it, but it gives you a sense of whether you want to stay. Then there's the Young Professional Program, which is an extremely competitive program, and it brings in people who are usually about middle management into the institution. And that also gives you a really interesting trajectory within the institution to advance. So look, I mean, I think if you're interested in a career in international development, the bank is a fantastic place to work. And I think, you know, applying and finding out how you can do that is really helpful. Looking at internships, putting your hand up for internships is also a possibility. So there are many routes in which you can join. But again, I would really emphasize having the skill set that's required, having the passion, and then finding ways to enter the workforce.
Wow, thank you so much. And I like that you drill down on the fact that people do not only have to see themselves working on disability. And it's one of the conversations that we've been having with many people. And I also want to mention that in the World Bank Group, there are corporate roles. So maybe you are here, you're a communications professional. Maybe you are a facilities professional. You are an HR professional. Or you work on IT. You have IT background. There are roles for you, legal roles for you as well. And so there is almost every role you can think about, and we want you to explore all those roles. I want to come back to you, Charlotte, and talk a bit about workplace accommodation. As candidates with disabilities, we think about, can the bank accommodate us? How has the bank accommodated you?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been at the bank for 22 years, so I've been able to see how the bank has actually progressed in providing accommodations for staff with disabilities. And I would venture to say that it's probably one of the better resourced institutions taking into account reasonable accommodations for persons with disabilities. We have what's called the Disabilities Accommodation Fund. And what that fund does is it provides resources to staff with disabilities, to consultants with disabilities, so that they can perform to their best potential. So in my case, that might be that I need to travel with an assistant. The bank will pick up the cost of the assistant traveling with me. I don't need too many other accommodations. I've had some accommodations that were one-off accommodations. So for instance, my desk, now remember this was 22 years ago, having a movable desk was a bit of a big deal. Today, almost all the desks are movable. So, you know, those are the types of accommodations that are made. But there are many other accommodations. There are accommodations for people who are deaf. You might need to have sign language interpreters. We have accommodations for staff who are blind. What I will say about accommodations is that you do need to be your own spokesperson. You need to advocate for yourself in order to make sure that you can access them. And like I said, over the years, we've seen tremendous improvement in terms of accessing the accommodations. So don't be hindered by the fact that there won't be accommodations. I think we also see that disability, there's the whole kind of spectrum of disability. 10 years ago, we weren't even talking about people who are neurodiverse. Today we are. And so we're building in those accommodations today. So I think if you're interested in a career at the bank, drive yourself, make sure that you want to do this, and once you get in, there will be ways to accommodate you.
Wow, thank you so much. We are getting close to ending the panel, but before we end the panel, I just want to maybe go back to Muna and maybe ask you to share. How important is inclusion to senior leaders, managers, practice managers? And then I'll come to you, Martin, to just give advice. What can people do to stand out when they are seeking opportunities at the World Bank Group? And then maybe, Charlotte, you can wrap it up on, I know that you do a lot of work on disability across the World Bank Group, and maybe if you can share some of the impact projects in disability that we have achieved. Yeah, so Mona, can you please share with us?
Thank you, and I know we don't have much time, so I'll try to be quick. I think we know, I think almost most people at the bank, and hopefully most people know that inclusion matters. It's just the right thing to do. But there is something else for people who kind of follow the World Bank, where the real focus now is on productivity and jobs. So it's how do we support productivity and jobs in the countries we work in. Now, we cannot do that if we are leaving out big segments of the population. So as we look at this jobs kind of North Star and focus for the bank, we know that this is really a critical part, and we are trying our best to look to think about how does inclusion work and how do we support it. So for example, I work in education, and we know if children do not get into education early, they will not then build the foundational skills they need, then the vocational or academic skills they need, and then go to have productive jobs. So it is really important for me from the education sector, where we try very carefully to look at who gets excluded in the early years. And Ethiopia is a program, and Charlotte even knows it better than me, but it is a program that does a big focus on inclusive education resource centers, supporting a cluster of 5 or 6 schools with one center. And what we've seen is almost a 10-15% increase in the number of kids who are coming to school because these resources are available. So it's not that it cannot be done, we just need to be intentional about doing that, looking at experiences and evidence that works, and really ensuring that financing that supports the government is used for these areas. So I think Ethiopia is one of those that I'm most proud of because of the impact that it's had, and we hope to use that example in other countries. But there's another part of inclusion. It's just not about supporting, but it's also about who's at the table. And I think, Martin, you spoke on that. We really need to ensure that the people from the bank side who's working on these areas have a diverse opinions and come from a diverse background. We cannot say that we care about disability inclusion if nobody at the table who's helping design these types of programs have personal experiences. So I think it becomes important not only what we do, but who is at the table thinking through what we do. And I hope that, I'm sure we can always do better, but I'm actually glad that I'm here because it helped me kind of rethink about this. Who do I have on our team? What kind of work do we do? So again, thanks for having me. And I do think that these are areas that we think are important. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. And Martin, tell us, how can people stand out when looking for opportunities at the World Bank Group?
Obviously, as like many employers and as a sought-after employer, we often have a choice. When we open a position, we'll have many applications. So being good at what you do, having good education, etc., is certainly critical. The other thing, more generally, I just would say is, look, like. We are a big institution, and still we have limited opportunities, obviously. And every time an opportunity opens, there's always a bit of luck involved. It's never really an absolute judgment of any applicant whether you get a job or not. It's always a bit the question of who are the other applicants. Sometimes you can be lucky, sometimes you can be unlucky. Sometimes an opportunity might open up that is basically just something that fits your skill. Sometimes it might take a while. So the biggest advice I would have is don't give up. We have many colleagues who have applied several times, were rejected many times because it was just not the right time, or they were just not lucky at the time. And whenever you hire someone, there's a lot of uncertainty. So don't take it ever personal in your career, in your applications. Just be resilient. But also, I think with sort of randomness, so with luck, also comes the ability, you can influence the luck a little bit. Obviously, if you do your homework, if you try to network, if you happen to know people, or you ask someone whether they would be just willing to meet you for a coffee to talk about, you will actually find many people, not just in the World Bank, they will be willing to meet with you just for a coffee at some time. Just ask for it. And use the opportunity to ask questions and learn. Don't be shy. Don't be your best spokesperson, I think, as Charlotte said. So that's, I think, something I would have never done when I was younger, but I would strongly recommend. Now also seeing how things work. So that would be probably my key advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to you, Charlotte, can you tell us a bit about our commitment to disability inclusion and some of the major projects that we are driving for those who are interested to know?
So I think what I should start off by saying is that disability is now included in the World Bank's environmental social framework, which is a policy that kind of scaffolds all of our projects. And that is really important, right? Because the expectation is that our projects will then address issues around disability inclusion. But I wanted to move away from just the policy space, because I think we've done pretty well in terms of getting policy. We have a disability inclusion and accountability framework for the institution, and maybe share with you like 3 examples where I think the bank has, in my view, excelled in addressing disability inclusion. And the one is an education project in Rwanda, and it was the Quality Basic Education Human Capital Development Project. And this project was a World Bank project, so financed by the World Bank, with some additional funding from a trust fund within the bank. And through that project, we were able to build 11,000 accessible schools. Wow. Right? We were able to build 15,000 accessible toilets. We trained 142 teachers, and we provided resources, learning materials to 20,000 learners. Now, this is exciting because the advantage with the bank is you can take it to scale, right? So this is not a pilot project, this is scale, and that is very exciting. The other project that I thought I might mention was also on the continent, and it was in Lesotho. And in Lesotho, we had a social protection project. And within the social protection project, we were able to procure and distribute laptops and tablets to children who were blind and low vision. And in a country like Lesotho that's extremely mountainous, it changed their lives. They were able to participate and be educated and access services. And then the other one that I mentioned earlier on is one that I'm also extremely proud of, and I think my team is very proud of. It's called the Disability Data Hub, and it's a digital platform that we launched at the Global Disability Summit. It's a partnership program with Microsoft, the World Bank, and GIZ. And what we have on that platform is data for 63 countries. From very many sectors. So we've got education, we've got health, we've got infrastructure, jobs, etc. I promised that I would put the QR code on the screen if you came to the session, and so you did. So please check it out. It really is an excellent tool for you to explore and see, is there data from your country that's available there? And if there isn't any data, send us an email. We'll look at improving it. The other thing that I would also ask you to consider when you look at this is that we've tried really hard to make this accessible, and we've invested heavily in doing that. We know that it might not be perfect, so if you have any issues in that regard, please let us know as well. So those would be some of the 3 kind of key areas that I'd like to focus on, but just to say that I think increasingly the bank is really walking the talk and looking at disability inclusion, certainly in the design of some of our major projects.
Wow, please help me, let's give them a round of applause.